لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله. حي على السلام حي على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. اللهم اجعل قلبي بارا وامري سارا ورزقي دارا ولادي ابرارا وجلي عند قبر نبيك محمدا مستقرا وقرارا برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء. تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم. كما قال عز شأنه كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت. وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه ماس العباد في الخلوات. سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد. فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه. يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء. تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفوه تفضل. ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين. من ركب سفينتهم نجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرق. وهوى أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وعروة وثقى. فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه الصلاة والسلام: غائبا منكره حاضرا معروفه مقبلا خيره مدبرا شره. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I begin by advising myself and all of you to practice the piety and the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as is the best of provision. The segment that I recited is from the kalam of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Where Imam addresses an important concept, which of course is relevant in these days and ayyam that we are going through, the ayyam azab of Sayyid al-Shuhada and his companions, and their rising and their nahdat, their revolution, which is in order to uplift the name of the madhab, to speak of ma'roof and to forbid, that is munkar. Imam, when he speaks about those who are pious, he says pious is someone whose evils are invisible. His virtues are present, his good is ahead, and his mischief has turned its face from him. Of course, the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen require in-depth analysis in order for us to understand that when Imam is speaking about someone who is a good person, a pious individual, a muttaqi, how is it then it's, that this muttaqi has evil, has bad or vices? Or if he does, then why are they invisible? And of course, virtues are always present because you see, and that's the reason you call so-and-so to be pious or a man of or woman of honor and respect. And then Imam says his good is ahead and his mischief has turned his face from him. Explaining the attributes of muttaqin here, Imam says their evil or haram acts are hidden. Meaning what? Meaning we're speaking about someone who's muttaqi. We're not speaking about someone who is infallible and masoom. There's a difference between muttaqi and masoom. Masoom does not commit sins. Masoom does not indulge into any haram. But muttaqi can still go toward haram. Muttaqi is someone who's practicing taqwa as much as they can, but still there's a possibility for them to go close to that which is forbidden. So the haram acts done by these muttaqeen are things which are hidden in a sense that they do not affect others. So there are different types of haram. At times it is a haram which is individually affecting me, but at times it is a haram which is affecting the entire society. And therefore, someone who's so careful when it comes to being, pious and knowing the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, staying away from committing sins, knows that even if he does commit something which is questionable, it does not affect anyone else in the society and it only affects him. And so therefore, this is where Imam used the term ghaib for munkar and hadir for ma'roof. Munkar, evil, is ghaib. Ma'roof, good, is hadir. This tells us that this ghaib, hidden, is a permanent feature. Otherwise, it is against the stature of a pious to allow their soul to act indecently even for a moment. Yes, we have high standards for even those who are pious, that when they reach that level of piety, it is very difficult to go ahead and associate anything wrong with them. This is where a lot of time people misunderstood the concept of infallibility. And our brothers in Islam, they only consider Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be masoom. Aside from Allah, no one else is masoom. And their dalil is that Quran talks about Rasulullah and other Anbiya having done mistakes, because that's their interpretation of the ayat of Quran. So for example, regarding the initial ayat of Surah Fath, it is mentioned regarding Rasulullah that inna fatahna laka fathan mubina liyaghfir Allahu laka ma taqaddama min dhanbik wa ma ta'akhkhar. That indeed Allah has given you a manifesting victory so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive your past and future sins. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is associating sins to Rasulullah. We consider our aqidah is he is ma'soom, he is infallible, he cannot commit sin. Why is it that Quran talks about him committing a sin? Or in regards to Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, wa asa Adam, that Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, wa asa Adamu, that Adam alayhi salatu wasalam committed a sin. He did something which is isyan, which is ma'asiyat. So from that aspect, the ayat of Quran is associating what? Sin to Hazrat Adam, who according to us, all the Anbiya are ma'soom and infallible. So based on these ayat, they consider that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ismat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ma'soom, no one else is ma'soom. Of course, this contradicts with our aqidah that no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created different creations such as angels. He created humans, and amongst humans He created those who are anbiya and awliya, and He has given them this concept of ismat and taharat, by which they are masoom. But the difference between them and the angels is that angels cannot commit sin, while anbiya can, but they don't. So there's a skill there, right? If it was someone who's barred from going out of this place, they're always stuck in this place, then this is not a skill to be in masjid all the time, because you're stuck over here, you have no way out. But for someone to do everything else and then still make it to the masjid, still be here for salat, that requires a skill. That means that you are dedicated to it. So here, ma'sumin, their hands are not tied in that regard. So bringing you back to the point as to you and I, when we climb up the ladder, when we become mu'min, or we work toward and strive toward becoming muttaqeen and parhezgar and pious, there's certain things that we refrain from doing. There's certain sins we don't even think about doing. So from that aspect, you and I are also partially masoom. Partially, I said, I didn't say completely. Partially masoom. Why? Because, killing is a sin, is a major sin. I don't think any of us has ever killed anyone or ever thinks about killing anyone. For example, consuming alcohol is a sin. I'm sure all of us have been able to manage to avoid consuming alcohol, knowingly for that matter. Or adultery or other sins that are considered to be major sins, we refrain from that. And you can count maybe 100 things that you and I have never done or never thought of doing, for example. They're just so abominable sins. So therefore, partially, you and I are also ma'soom, but not completely. That complete ismat and taharat belongs to anbiya and ma'soomin, Ahl Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. So with that said, how do you put a parallel between the two? That ayat of Quran which says, O Prophet, we gave you a manifesting victory so that we will forgive your future and past sins. The interpretation of this ayat mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Fatih Makkah, or speaks about Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. That victory, which is a manifesting victory, whether it is Sulh Hudaybiyah, the pact at Hudaybiyah, or whether it is the conquest of Makkah, either one. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speak about forgiving Rasulullah after having mentioned Fatih Makkah, which is 8th year after Hijrah, for example, right? Rasulullah lived for another couple of years. This ayat is being revealed, mentioning Fatih Makkah, saying that we will forgive your past and future sins. Only a couple of years left in the life of Rasulullah. He's already lived for 61 years. So here, Ma'sumin mentioned, you got to look at the context of the ayah. When you look at the context of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about a victory that He gave to Rasulullah, which was a turning point in a sense. Islam's, indispensability, that Islam is now had overcome all the hurdles in that peninsula. So why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speak about sin of Rasulullah? The fact of the matter is, the interpretation here does not mean na'udhu-billah Rasulullah committed any sins in the past. No, his kirdar has been cleaned. His behavior, his character has been clean and remain cleaned. Why? Because the other ayat of Quran has already promised, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ. Right? You believe that azwaj are part of it? Sure. Rasulullah is definitely part of it, right? إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ. If anyone is part of this ayat, it's Rasulullah. So when Allah has already promised taharat for Rasulullah, what would this ayah refer to having, forgiving Rasulullah's sins from the past and the future? Mufassirin mentioned this ayat refers to not the sins in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, it is the sins in the eyes of kuffar. Meaning the way you broke their idols, it was a sin in front of them. We will forgive that. And moving forward as well, no one will stand in your way going back to the city of Makkatul Mukarramah, because that's what you were barred from going to because of what you had done by breaking the idols. So this is the interpretation. So, well, that's understandable. What about Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam? The ayat clearly says, Asa. Hazrat Adam committed a sin. The word ma'asiyat is being used regarding Hazrat Adam. How do you put a parallel with that as well? Well, that is also simple. Hazrat Adam, what he did in Jannat. He did in paradise. There's no haram or halal in paradise. There's no wajib or muharram in paradise. And therefore what Hazrat Adam ﷺ did may have been tarki awla or anything of disapproval of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but does not equate to being a sin because it was done in the paradise and not on this world. Salawat bi ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the point over here was, definitely Allah is masoom, Anbiya are masoom, Rasulullah is masoom, and then this ismat also transfers to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. These are the masoomin that we believe that are, pure, because the ayat of Quran, Innama yuridullah, refers to them. But then, trickle down, you speak about some of the greatest of the scholars that have passed. When you read about some of these scholars, I don't like sharing much stories about scholars, but some of them, they were, knocking at the door of ismat and taharat. They were so pure. The consumption of food, for example, Muqaddas-e-Ardebili, you might have heard his name. He got the title of being Muqaddas-e-Ardebili. He says, he had control over his desires so much that he even controlled it when he was, sleeping. And when alive, there's another story. But when sleeping, there's nothing and you're not held accountable. And then there's a story as to what they used to eat, what they used to consume. They said we used to eat the skin of watermelon. That's what they used to eat. That was their food. That's how their bodies were trained to eating that. He said one day, a businessman who had some success in his business came to our hausa and he gave some stipend and gave some money to be given to the students because he had some luck in his business and he wanted prayers. So the mudir, the principal, who took the money and he dispersed it amongst the students. The students said, well, now we've never had this much money before. Let's go buy some meat. They go out and they buy some meat. They purchase the meat. They prepare it. It's in a country which is an Islamic country, so you don't have any doubt about the hurmat of the meat. Meat is zabiha halal. They bring it home. They prepare it by their own hands, so there's no question on who cooked it. From that aspect, it is also halal and permissible. And they consume it. He said, that is the night when I was not able to control my desires in my dream. And I realized that it had to do with the meat that I had consumed. It had to do with the food that I had consumed, which the origination of where we bought it from, no. The money that we purchased it from. Luqmatul haram yubinu fi dhurriya. One haram morsel has effects on your progeny. Not just on you, but on your progeny as well. So be very careful what you consume, what you eat. So we can give a probability that hidden doesn't mean completely absent, as the word present is used in this, which would mean that, since pious are not infallible, it is possible that, for them to commit haram, but when they do make a mistake, it's kept secret from the eyes of the public and doesn't pollute the surrounding. So while there is a possibility for a pious individual to commit something which is questionable, but it is only, hurting him and is not hurting the entire community and the entire society. And there's a message in it as well, that when we do something, zalimi anfusihim, even harming yourself is not permissible, let alone harming someone else. La darar wa la dirar fil Islam. This one sentence by Rasulullah, that there's no harming or being harmed, or however you want to translate it, is allowed in Islam. And it does not say harming a Muslim or non-Muslim. Sometimes you get questions, can we cheat? Can we fraud someone who's an atheist or non-Muslim? No, you can't. Islam doesn't allow you to go out and do this to someone who is not subscribing to your religion. These ethics and moralities are not just for those who are Muslims. This is for everyone. This is how you should be when you live in a society like that. So be careful when you do something which is questionable, that if it is affecting you, it is bad. But at least it is not affecting someone else. That should be made sure. So it is often heard by people so that that so-and-so is a good person. We haven't seen any bad from him. All we've seen is good come out of this person. It is indicative of the fact that we cannot call them infallible. غَائِبًا مُنْكَرُ وَحَاضِرًا مَعْرُوفُ. That their munkar is ghaib and their ma'ruf, good deed, is hazir. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Very quickly, ma'ruf comes from the root word irfan. It means something that is known, recognized, whereas munkar comes from the word inkar, which means something which is unrecognized. Ma'ruf is known, recognized. Munkar is something which is unknown, unrecognized. And therefore, many mufassirin and as well as the historians and others who have worked in it, for example, Raghib in his book Mufradat says, Ma'ruf refers to every action which is recognized by Aql and Sharia as kind and good. So if Aql and Sharia puts a stamp of approval on it, that thing is considered to be Ma'ruf. But if the Aql and Sharia puts a stamp of disapproval on it, then regardless of what the society dictates, that action will remain bad. And we have so many examples. Just the movement that is now happening, with the rainbow colors, that how it is becoming a norm in the society. In fact, you find people advocating for it. Politicians for their own, interests are advocating for it. Even if they might despise it by themselves, but, for other interests they're doing it. That how something like that could become normalized in the society, where the society now accepts it. The fact that society accepts it, Aql still does not accept it. Deen still does not accept it. If these two are giving a stamp of disapproval, then regardless of how common this thing becomes, it will always remain. And I've given you a very, example which is definitely something which we can't ever compromise upon. But other things as well that we sometimes do compromise with. Gatherings of sort where there's lahav and la'ab going on. Parties or wedding parties for that matter. Places where being there is questionable. Well, Maulana, this is a society that we live in. This is where these things are considered to be normal. If Aql and Shariat is saying it is not right, then it is not right. Someone invited me to a wedding, a nikah, and first condition was that I said, well, I won't come if there's music in it. He said, well, there's no American music. It's only Pakistani music. So I said, you missed the point. Music is music, regardless, Pakistani or Indian, or American for that matter. No, we just wanted to make sure there's no American music in it. There's just going to be some Pakistani music in it. Well, I said, well, I won't be there if there's going to be music in it. He said, well, how about the time that you're there, we won't play it. I said, you want to pollute your gathering with music on this very auspicious occasion in your life? Be my guest. Yeah, at least as long as I'm there, it's not playing. But that's a compromise that I'm willing to make in order for the nikah to be done, for example. Otherwise, this is where we need to realize that is an action which is not just affecting you personally, but is also affecting others. How many people in that gathering who have only shown up because they're, your friends and they're related to you, but they despise sitting in that gathering. Every moment that passes by, they have to be there because they want to make sure that the communal relationships or the family relationships are, not broken off or severed or remain intact. That is where you're putting others into trouble. So therefore, a good action is called ma'ruf, recognized since Allah has created insan on nature where good habits and characteristics are known to him. That's why it's called ma'ruf. They're known to you. Piety is known to you. Ithar, preferring others, altruism is known to you. Justice, generosity, these are things that are known to you. That's why they're called what? Ma'ruf. And of course, there are things which are considered to be munkar, such as the injustice and oppression. These are things which human nature is not inclined naturally. These are things that people it becomes their habit, just like any other sin for that matter. You're not originally naturally inclined, you have hesitation doing it. But once you commit to it, then it becomes that much easier. So ma'ruf in Quran The Quran invites us to be using this ma'ruf on many occasions. I'll give you a few examples before I bring you to close. It says, فَاتَّبَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, chapter 2, verse 178. This is about retribution. And if one forgives, let the follow-up, the blood money, be honorable. اتَّبَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. If someone has forgiven, then of course, let this flow and let this go forward. مَتَاعٌ فَإِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, chapter 2, 229. This is about divorce. That once you have divorced twice, then let there be either an honorable retention or a kind release. Again, the concept of ma'ruf, kind release. But the worst of the separations that we see is even after the first divorce. Forget about third. We don't really get to the third one in our societies. The first time when the divorce takes place, how ugly things get and how people become enemies of one another, for example. Qawlun ma'ruf. This is about charity, an honorable reply in response to the needy, and forgiving their annoyance is a better thing than a charity which is followed by constant reproach and reminding and bragging about it. فَلْيَأْكُلْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. This is advice for the guardian of an orphan that, do not consume their wealth indiscriminately. It is theirs. If you do consume, تَأْكُلُونَ النَّارَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ يَأْكُلُونَ النَّارَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ. Is it as if they are consuming fire in their bellies? You got to be careful if you are taking care of a yatim and an orphan and you are responsible for them. وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, chapter 4, ayat 19. It is about how you live with your spouse. Quran says, unless they commit a gross indecency, live with your spouse in a good manner. عَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Ma'ruf again is the word which is being used over here. And then there are many other ayat of Quran. Of course, I don't have a great deal of time in my possession to get into all of that. So Quran basically invites us to ma'ruf in every area of our life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Similarly, when ayat have speaking so greatly about ma'ruf, then there's definitely going to be a lot of ahadith regarding ma'ruf as well. I'll share a few. Sixth Imam says, أَوَّلُ مَنْ يَدْخُلَ الْجَنَّةِ أَهْلُ الْمَعْرُوفِ. The first ones who will enter the paradise are the people of ma'ruf. Meaning what? Those who live a life of goodness. Ma'ruf. Ahl al-ma'ruf mean what? Those who do amr bil ma'ruf. Those who refrain from haram and munkarat. These are the first and the foremost who will be entering into the paradise. So act of goodness, even to those who don't deserve it, carries benefit for the others. So how is it possible that I be nice or kind to someone who doesn't deserve it? There are many people in the life that I come across, I don't want to do any good to them. Primarily because they have done something bad to me. I can never think about doing anything good to them. Imam Hussain was asked, is an act of goodness wasted if done for those who don't deserve it? Tied into the teaching of Sayyid al-Shuhada. How much we apply the teaching of Sayyid al-Shuhada, especially in the month of Muharram. He was asked, I'll repeat the question, that is an act of goodness wasted if done for those who don't deserve it? Imam responded by saying, لَيْسَ كَذَلِكَ وَلَكِنْ تَكُونُ السَّنِيعَ مِثْلِ وَابِلِ الْمَطَرِ تُصِيبُ الْبَرِّ وَالْفَاجِرِ. It is not wasted. An act of goodness is like a blessed rain, which reaches both good and bad. When it rains, rain is not discriminatory regarding where the water comes down to. It equally serves, the hard surface or the green surface or the desert or all the areas. When it rains equally in all of these places. Who benefits from it? Of course, the green surface will benefit from it. The desert will not benefit from it. But you are not wasting when you do this act of goodness similar to this rain, which is not being discriminatory regarding where it rains. So he says, if it rains on a desert and produces nothing, it's not considered rain's weakness. Rather, it is a defect of the land which is unable to produce. So when you do good to someone who's good and to someone who's bad, you have done your part. It is the lacking in that individual that it cannot multiply and come out with something good on their own. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'll conclude with this word that there are a few things that must be taken under consideration when doing good. Firstly, not reproaching, not bragging about it. I've mentioned that already through an ayat of Quran. Number two, don't leave your good deeds incomplete. A lot of times we start and then we leave it hanging and incomplete. Since the beauty of a good action is when it is completed. Jamalul ma'ruf itmamuhu. And the end of an action is better than its beginning. Beginning may not be as good, but the end is something which is definitely worthwhile. And that's what the picture people were missing at the time in 61st year after Hijrah. When they looked at Imam embarked on this journey, so many people stood in front of him saying otherwise, because they could not see the bigger picture. Yes, Imam was martyred. Yes, there were many among his family members who were killed. Yes, the female members were made captives. And yes, they were paraded from Kufa and Sham. This is all, atrocities beyond comprehension. But the end result of it, in words put by Janab Zainab herself, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I don't see anything except beauty in what all has happened and transpired. Why? Because you see the fruits of it even 14 centuries later. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us the tawfiq and ability to act on ma'roof, make our lives be filled with ma'roof and refrain from munkarat. Inna asl hadith, wa ablagh al-mu'ida kitabullah, a'udhu billahi min ash-shaitan ar-rajim, bismillah ar-rahman ar-rahim, wal asr, inna al-insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الضم وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضب وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها وعفى عن السيئات ولم يجاز بها سبحان من لا يزداد على معاصي العباد إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا عفوا وصفحا نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لطوف على العباد بجوده والعباد المذنبين بحلمه نشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين والشفيع المذنبين بعثه رحمة للعالمين ألا قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا للصفي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وعلى سيد نساء العالمين وبذة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ما هي آثار البدع والطغيان هادم ابنة الشرك والنفاق حاسد فروع البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام اتصلت الليالي والأيام اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على أمراء المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وعلو الدرجات اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فذكر إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. وبصل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة لابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's recite the Surah Fatiha for the sponsors of today's Jummah lunch. It is the family of Masjid-e-Ali. Please recite the Surah Fatiha for all of your deceased relatives as well as ours. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. الصراط صراط الذين ولا الضالين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Just a recap on the announcements. Inshallah, the series of majalis commemorating the shahadat of our fourth Imam will continue tonight and as well as tomorrow night. Tonight and tomorrow night, the program starts at 8:15, followed by Namaz-e-Maghriban in Jamaat, and then in Majlis-e-Aza. Tonight is tomorrow night will be the Tabut. Okay. Huh? Tomorrow night, inshallah, the Tabut will be brought out, and you're requested to attend. These majalis are being addressed by Maulana Syed Bilal Rizvi. Also today, there's a ladies and youth girls majlis, an interactive Q&A session, which will be happening right after Jummah. For the girls and the ladies, this will be taking place downstairs in the ladies' banquet hall. So right after Jummah, you can make your way down to the banquet hall, inshallah. Tomorrow, being Saturday, 12th of August, along with the Majlis-e-Aza, following the Majlis, there will be 34th annual Shabedari by Anjuman-e-Naujawanan Ali Akbar. Of course, Matamdari all night long, and we'll conclude with Namaz-e-Fajr on, of course, Sunday morning. So that will be tomorrow night, inshallah. After the main Majlis, the Shabedari will take place, 34th annual Shabedari. Upcoming, inshallah, programs, we have the weekend of August 25th to 27th. Maulana Sayyid Sulaiman Hassan Abdi will be addressing, inshallah, and then the Arba'in Majalis will be addressed by Sayyid Hussein Qazwini, and inshallah we'll conclude with the 28th of Safar Majalis recited by Sheikh Fayaz Jafar. These are as far as the Majalis and the schedule of things and the events. Let's recite Amma Yuji for all of those people who are in need of dua, suffering, struggling, going through a difficult time. Especially in these ayyam azam, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring them out of their difficulties. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su. 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. Before proceeding to Salatul Asr, I'm going to invite Dr. Aftab Sen to say a few words.
Thank you, Maulana. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me first share some good news with you. Alhamdulillah, Sakina Daycare Center is ready and will start in September. The children 2.5 years and above can take advantage of that. The Sadiq school, Alhamdulillah, is going to start the 3rd grade. So those parents who have children that are able to go in 3rd grade can now take the advantage of Sadiq school. You might have noticed that today's lunch and last Friday's lunch is sponsored by Masjid-e-Ali. The reason is that the people who are sponsoring the Friday lunch are backing off because of the increased price of the food and increased attendance of the people coming in Friday. So I'm requesting that we need new, fresh members who are attending these ibadat to please come forward and sponsor the Friday lunch, because it is for Sawab, we will recite Surah Fatiha for your marhumeen. And it doesn't have to be just one family, we can have more than one family, just like we do in the other programs, but we do need new people to step forward and sponsor. The other very important thing I would like to share with you is that my brother Amjad Hashmi, he stands over there after the Namaz-e-Jummah. And majority of you people ignore and pass by. That is disheartening, disappointing. He is standing there to collect money so the masjid will have enough money to pay the utilities. And then those people who are giving it are putting $1 in his bucket. Really? Are we that poor that we cannot put $5 each of us? Now, if we do that, 100 people giving $5, it will mean $500. And in the end of the year, it will become $25,000. And this amount can take care of the utilities. Please teach your children also to start giving so they learn, just like any other thing. So I hope that you will pay attention to my request. Thank you so much.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته يقوم فاقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام. واسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد ذليل خاضع فقير بائس مسكين مستقيم مستجير لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من نفس لا تشبع ومن قلب لا يخشى ومن علم لا ينفع ومن صلاة لا ترفع ومن دعاء لا يسمع اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر والفرج بعد الكرب والرخاء بعد الشدة. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Muntadir Zara today recite the Ziyarat of Mizan al-Qisas Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum ya Nabiyullah, assalamu alaikum ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, ya Qasim al-Jannati wal-Nar, assalamu alaikum Sayyid Insan al-Alamin, assalamu alaikum ya Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwwah Jummah rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Zain al-Abidina, ya Zain al-Mutahajjidina, ya Imam al-Muttaqina, ya Wali al-Muslimina, ya Qurrata Ayn al-Nazirin al-Arifina, ya Wasi al-Wasiyina, ya Khazin al-Wasai al-Mursalina. Assalamu alaikum ya Zawal al-Mustawishina, ya Nur al-Mutahajjidina, ya Sirat al-Murtazina, ya Assalamu alaikum ya Zakhiyat al-Muta'abbidina. Assalamu alaikum ya Bismillah al-Alamin, ya Safinat al-Ilm, ya Sakinat al-Hilm. Assalamu alaikum ya Mizan al-Qisas, ya Safinat al-Khalas. Assalamu alaikum ya Bahar al-Nada, ya Badr al-Juda, ya Ayyul Khawal al-Halim. Assalamu alaikum ya Sabir al-Hakim, ya Rijs al-Bukain, ya Bismillah al-Mu'minin. Assalamu alaikum ya Abu Muhammadin ashhadu annaka hujjatullahi wa amna hujjati wa abu hujjati wa amna aminihi wa amna amanai wa annaka nasata fi ibadati rabbika wa sarata fi marzati wa khayyabta adahu wa sararta awliya. Ashhadu annaka qad abadta Allah haqqa ibadati wa taqaitahu haqqa tuqatihi wa ta'atahu haqqa ta'atihi hatta taqalikin. وعليك يا مولاي يا ابن رسول الله أفضل التحية والسلام عليك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك صاحب العصر والزمان، يا خليفة الرحمن، يا إمام الإنس والجان، يا كعبة الإيمان، يا تفسير الفرقان. السلام عليك شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا إمام زماننا، أجل الله فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.